Welcome back to the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast presented by Rising Sun Global Media. I'm Zach, and here with me is our own fantasy guru, Jeffe. Week 2 of the 2020 NFL season is in the books, and man, the injury bug came early this year. Fantasy owners are scrambling heading into Week 3 to replace a slew of major players, including Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, among others. But don't worry, Jeffe's here to save the day. Let's do it. Before we start, I'm going to give Jeffe a little time to boast. Dude hit the nail on the head in fantasy advice last week. You want to throw a little bit out there, Jeff?
Yeah, so, obviously just having a running back that can get you 20 points in a week is a nice thing to have, but they're only somewhere between 5 and 10 a week. Well, I told you last week that Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb could both get in the 20s, and they did just that. One of the rarest things in fantasy football. It feels good, man. I can't.
Oh, I bet. That was good advice. Thankfully, I had Nick Chubb, so I benefited off that advice right there. So let's see what you got to say this week. So, all right, here we go. Let's go ahead and stick with the running backs. The wire is going to be hot this week. Who are you looking to grab if you need a replacement at running back?
Well, my top one, for somebody that has CMC, their top priority needs to be getting Mike Davis, because you don't necessarily need somebody that's long-term, so you don't need to go and get a Dion Lewis, but you get CMC's backup, and he got, I believe, 8 catches yesterday, and it was only for 43 yards or so, but 8 catches out of the backfield, and he was only playing for most of the fourth quarter. And so I think he's going to be your number one. They're probably going to pass a lot, and obviously any of the running duty, he's going to be having a heavy workload for the next month or so. But like I mentioned earlier with Dion Lewis, Saquon's out. So in the long term, you don't really know if they're going to want to use Dion Lewis more or Wayne Gallman. Wayne Gallman was in the offense last year. He filled in for Saquon last year at certain points when Saquon had to miss time. But they used Dion Lewis a little more yesterday. And even Saquon wasn't putting up numbers in the limit. He was only in the season for a game and part of the quarter. But he didn't really get anything going. Dion didn't really get anything going in the run game. He could definitely be used more out of the backfield, which he has been traditionally used for with the other teams that he's been on. So, he'll in PPR leagues, he'll be really valuable. Maybe in standard leagues, not so much. And another one that's kind of short term, could be long term, because Tevin Coleman's been kind of injury prone too. Mostert got hurt. So I think Jerick McKinnon, there's obviously some injury risk that comes with him too. Some of the players were complaining about the field in New York being sticky, and they believe that field got the players hurt. There, an abundance of players for the 49ers, a couple players for the Jets getting hurt. So they're talking about maybe doing a neutral site game. That's probably not likely to happen, but there has been talks about that. There is a chance of re-injury. Jerick McKinnon has missed a lot of time with his own injuries, but he's going to be the feature back in a team that runs the ball a lot. It's a scheme that they break off big runs. It doesn't really matter who's in the game. One of those running backs gets a 50-yard run every game pretty much. So Jerick McKinnon, pretty safe bet as long as he's staying healthy. Another person that interests me with the Panthers coming off of the waiver wire this week, coming out of a receiver group, is Curtis Samuel. He's been the number 3 receiver in that offense, which is obviously going to be pass happy this year. The defense sucks, so they're going to have to pass a lot. But they're talking about having Curtis Samuel come out of the backfield at certain points, which adds, receiving threat coming out of the backfield. And I don't know if he has previous running back experience or what, but I'm assuming if they're talking about it, that's something that they've practiced before. So that could be something exciting. Maybe he starts putting up more points for the Panthers. Another waiver wire option there. There are a few of them here for receivers. Devontae Adams, we don't really know what's going on with him. He's got some lingering issues going on. So they may decide to sit him. And MBS has stepped up. He's looked good. They leaned on Aaron Jones last week against the Lions because they didn't have to pass a whole lot. But in a more competitive game coming up, I expect them to lean more on Aaron Rodgers in the passing game. So MBS, whether he's the one or two, it doesn't really matter at this point. He needs to be on somebody's team. He on probably a flex play every week at this point. Especially with Devontae out, probably a starter. Pittman Jr. From the Colts is a really interesting option. The Colts used Zach Pascal a lot last year, so it'll be interesting to see if they move him to the 2 instead of Pittman. But it'd be cool to see them let the rookie get some more reps as the number 2, let him get a bigger role in the offense because as we've seen from Ty, he's just not the same guy. He's not running as fast. He still runs great routes. He's a really smart player. He'll find ways to get the balls, but Ty is not the same. So I think Pittman has a lot of upside in this offense with Paris Campbell not in the lineup. I think Pittman has a chance to really show out as a rookie. Another rookie that I think could be really, really good is Chase Claypool, a big play guy for the Steelers. He has a lot of speed on him. I know they have Juju and they have Deontay Johnson. And honestly, Deontay Johnson's been looking good, but we'll talk about him another time. Chase Claypool, somebody in deeper leagues. This isn't a guy that you're probably taking in a 10-team league unless somebody's getting hurt on that offense. But if you're in a 12, 14, or 16-team league, then Chase Claypool's an interesting option. He had a really impressive catch on the sideline in week 1 and then exploded for a big catch and run in week 2. So I really like him a lot. And the last one here for receivers that I have on waivers is going to be Keelan Cole for the Jaguars. He's not the guy that a lot of people know, right? Not a lot of people know many of the names that are on the Jaguars, but a lot of people expected DJ Chark to really be the guy that comes out and stands out. And nothing really stands out a whole lot on this offense because Gardner Minshew's throwing it to like 10 different people every game. Nobody's having huge games, but Keelan Cole's been the most productive for him. Gardner Minshew's targeting him a lot, and he's catching as many as he can in the offense. He has Gardner Minshew thrown to him, but he's been producing at a decent rate. He's getting end zone targets, so I like Keelan Cole for waivers there.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid list, I would say. Especially the running backs. I definitely think you hit the nail on the head with Mike Davis. I think he's going to have to put up points. And if he's anything like Christian McCaffrey, which I know not a whole lot of people are because he's Christian McCaffrey, but if he could still get out there, catch passes, I think didn't he catch like 8 passes or something last couple games?
Yeah, he had 8 catches. I believe it was 8 catches for 43 yards.
Yeah, so he's a passing back. He'll rack up the points, especially in PPR. So, what about quarterbacks? You got any quarterbacks? I know a couple of them not playing so well. Jimmy G went down with a high ankle sprain. Any quarterbacks you got on the waiver or no?
There's really only one. Not a whole lot of activity with the quarterbacks. I might add a second one here, but I'm not very confident with it. But I think picking up Mullins, the backup quarterback for the Niners, might be a good idea. He came in when Jimmy G went down a couple years ago, and he did a decent job. And he's a couple years older, and he's had some time to kind of understudy under Jimmy G and Kyle Shanahan, and he didn't look terrible yesterday. You got to remember this is pass-first offense, not a whole lot of passing weapons. But the defense in San Francisco, there's a lot of injuries right now, so they may get behind and have to pass. That's something to think about going forward. If they keep Jimmy G out, I'm not real sure if they're going to keep him out. Sounds like they will to be more precautionary. But Peyton Manning had a high ankle sprain in 2013 and still came out and won the MVP that year. Played fine with it, but it does affect some guys in a different way. So you kind of have to monitor that. But Mullins might be an interesting one, and one that I wouldn't count on, but a guy that looked good this weekend was Justin Herbert. If Tyrod doesn't perform well here in the next week or two and they lose a couple games, then and they're 0-4 or 0-5, then you could see Anthony Lynn switch positions and say that Herbert can start. But right now he's saying that as long as Tyrod can go, then that's going to be the guy that's starting. But I wouldn't blame you if you were proactive and you went out and got a Justin Herbert, because I think he's going to be a superstar quarterback in this league. Maybe not obviously right away, but I think he can produce big time right away, and there's a lot of potential there. So maybe if you want to be proactive this week, maybe not this week, but after this week, Justin Herbert should be on people's watch list at the least.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. He really impressed me this last week, and I don't understand why teams. I mean, Tyrod's an all right quarterback, but it's like with the Browns, they kept Tyrod in instead of putting in Baker, and I just don't understand. You have a young rookie who has performed well in the time that he has gotten on the field, and you're going to continue to roll with Tyrod. I just don't get it, but yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think Justin Herbert's gonna ball out if he gets the opportunity again. So, what about tight ends? You got any tight ends on the waiver wire? I know quite a few produced pretty well last week.
Yeah, one that I was really excited about, as a Colts fan, I knew the name Mo Alley Cox. There are other maybe diehard sports fans might know the name. He played college basketball at VCU, and the dude is 6'7", like 260 pounds. He I think ran like a 4.48 40 or something crazy like that. 35-inch vertical. He's a physical freak. He just had to come into his own as a tight end, but he's had time under Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron, and and it didn't look good starting out. Right, the first target he got was in the red zone, and it bounced right off his hands, and he dropped it. But after that, he produced and had 5 catches for 101, and he looked really good. He's a good runner. He looked like he had good hands after he got that one drop out of the way, and this is a tight end centric offense. There's no secret to it, but it's hard to stop. And Trey Burton is on the IR still. He'll be eligible to come back after this week, but if Mo does well, then I could see him overtaking Trey's spot. And Trey's been injury prone over the first couple years of his career, so maybe he gets hurt again, and it would be nice to have Mo there anyways. But like I said, as a Colts fan, I'm really excited about Mo. It's an interesting waiver wire ad. Another interesting ad that's probably not long term, but you kind of have to see what the situation is. Jordan Reed came out and did what Jordan Reed used to do, right? He balled out.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a few years since we heard that name in fantasy.
Yep, and it feels good, and he looked good, and he had 2 touchdowns for him, and we know this offense obviously likes to go to the tight ends also. They love George Kittle there, and Jordan Reed was a nice fill-in for him. And granted, they were playing the Jets and blah blah blah, but he still had 2 touchdowns, and it's a good start with the 49ers. If Kittle has to miss more games because of that hyperextended knee, then Jordan Reed should definitely be on somebody's team somewhere. And another one filling in for somebody that had an injury is Dalton Schultz. He's a young guy, but he performed well, and they needed somebody to perform well. The offense wasn't really getting it together yesterday for the Cowboys until late in that game. But Dak seems pretty content with using, whether it was Blake Jarwin in game one until he got hurt, or Dalton Schultz since then. He seems comfortable with checking down to these tight ends. I think Mike McCarthy did a better job of letting Dak know, you got to use these guys. There were a couple times last year where Jason Witten was open in the middle of the field and didn't get hit. But it seems like Dak is hitting these guys now, and he produced really well yesterday. This seems to be a more pass-happy offense. The defense in Dallas is kind of doing them dirty and getting them down in games. So maybe they have to pass more than we thought. We're not going to see as much as Zeke this year, but Dalton Schultz is definitely an interesting waiver pick this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you. Very good points on all three of those. So there you are. Week 3 waiver wire picks. If you're in need of any kind of position, Hefe's got the advice for you. So take him up on it. Snag up a solid player or two, rack up some points just like last week. So I want to transition into starters and sitters this week. We'll go ahead and think of the typical matchups you got for your majority rostered players. But let's start with running backs. Who you got starting? Who you sitting this week?
Well, I don't want to go over, your obvious starts here. You're starting your Zeke's, Kamara's. I think there are two kind of big name guys that you're gonna think about sitting this week. Don't hold me to it, but I don't like the way things are looking for him. So Dalvin Cook, that Vikings offense just doesn't look good. And if they're gonna have to pass a lot, then I don't know what his production is going to be in a PPR league. That could be good if he's getting a bunch of checkdowns. But they're playing the Titans this week, and the Titans have a more stout defense. So I'd be more cautious on Dalvin Cook. He's still Dalvin Cook. He's an animal. But it's somebody that'll be a little cautious about this week. And also Clyde Edwards-Helaire hasn't really gotten the pass production that I think we expected a Chiefs running back to get. He hasn't looked bad by any means. And granted, this past weekend they had to play the Chargers. That defense is a buzzsaw. They're really good all around. But
Yeah, but this week they got the Ravens too. So
yeah, that's what worries me. This Ravens defense is just as good, if not better. They're just so deep at every position, and so I'm a little worried about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe I think they're going to have to pass more. But it's just worried. I think that's going to be a game kind of like this past week with the Chiefs, where I'm not real confident in any of that offense. After playing a defense like the Chargers, I'm just a little worried about CEH. The last big name guy that might not be a huge surprise that I'd want to sit him is Todd Gurley. The offense the passing offense looks really good, but they keep getting in situations where they can't run the ball because they get down early. And I mean, even this past week when they weren't down, they still didn't really get Gurley involved. So it worries me that's not really the game plan. I don't know how you get Todd Gurley and you're just like, oh yeah, we're just not going to run the ball this year. But they're not. He hasn't put up the points. He has 19.8 points in 2 weeks. So that's somebody that I'm sitting this week. Somebody that I'm more confident with starting this week is Jonathan Taylor. We know that the Vikings defense isn't this year what it has been in the past, but Jonathan Taylor in his first start got most of the carries. We didn't really see Nyheim Hines. We saw a little bit of Jordan Wilkins. But Jonathan Taylor got the bulk of the snaps in this one, and he looked really good. He was a powerful runner, and that bodes well. As a Colts fan, that's really exciting. But he looked good. He had 100 yards in his first start, so that's somebody that's probably an every week start going forward. And Darrell Henderson. So we thought Malcolm Brown was going to have a bigger role this week. And it turned out early on, it looked like Cam Akers, and he got hurt early on. And then Malcolm Brown started running the ball again. But then he, I think, broke his finger, which he had surgery on today. And his status is up in the air. So, and they think he might be able to go, but it'll be iffy to see, if he can't hold on to the ball very well, then he's probably not going to get very many snaps. So Darrell Henderson, he looked good. And that Rams offense is really humming right now. So Darrell Henderson is somebody that, I wasn't able to pick up in any of my leagues, so I didn't want to include him as a waiver wire pick, but somebody that should definitely be starting this week, in my opinion. And out of the two of the waiver wire picks that we mentioned earlier are must starts for me in Mike Davis and Jerick McKinnon. They should absolutely be picked up and started this week.
Yeah, I agree. The best thing with Jonathan Taylor for this coming week is the Colts are playing the Jets. So he should have a monster game, barring any unfortunate events such as the injury bug, which, God, I hope that doesn't happen, especially given all the injuries that the Colts have already had. But, all right, so moving on to receivers. Guys that are borderline on matchups, who you starting, who you sitting?
So kind of the same reason that I'm sitting Dalvin Cook is the same reason I want to sit Adam Thielen. Over the first 2 weeks, he's got a total of 39.1 points, but he only had 6 this past week. And I, as a Colts fan, I'd like to say that's got to be a product of the defense and just how stout that secondary is. But they looked exceptionally bad against the Colts. And going forward, I don't know how that's going to bode for them. I think it really affects Adam Thielen to not have Stephon Diggs there. I think Stephon Diggs took a lot of the pressure off of Adam Thielen. But without the added threats in there, the rookie wide receiver isn't performing just yet. So the offense isn't really doing anything, and I don't have much confidence in anybody for the Vikings right now. Another one, somebody that's had 2 really good weeks starting out, but I think is going to be a little more down this week just because of his matchup, strictly because of his matchup, is Robert Woods. He draws Trey White this week, and I think he's going to be a little more locked up than he has been. Obviously just a tougher matchup than what he's had here in the first 2 weeks. I think Cooper Kupp is going to have a bigger impact. With the way that this offense is going, you could easily see Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp both produced every week with no problem. But I'm a little more high on Cooper Kupp this week than I am Robert Woods. And then AJ Green, what has happened to AJ Green? He had the injuries, but it was a bunch of leg injuries. It's not like he broke his hands and forgot how to use them. But he dropped so many passes this week. He looks sluggish. Just like T.Y. Hilton. These stars are getting older and inevitable fall off, and we're watching it happen. So and you could put Ty in there because I think the Colts are going to run a bunch this week, and Pittman's going to have more of a role. So AJ Green, Ty Hilton, probably stay away from them this week. But a lot of guys that I'm excited about. Calvin Ridley looks like a star, right? I know Julio is dealing with and playing through a hamstring injury, and he tweaked an ankle. And Julio always plays through stuff, and he has his occasional game where he just doesn't do a lot, which was this past week, unfortunately, because I have him. But Calvin Ridley has 4 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. He's a bona fide star with or without Julio. Obviously, having Julio on the field opens Calvin up more. Over the first 2 years and 2 weeks of Calvin Ridley's career, he's really shown that he can be a complete game changer, and he has been. That defense just keeps letting him down there. But somebody that's coming back this week that didn't play last week is Chris Godwin, and I expect him to do really well. I think Mike Evans draws a little bit of a tougher one-on-one matchup, so I think Chris Godwin's going to be more of an emphasis. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as well as they did this past week there in Tampa, so I expect Godwin to have a better game with CMC out of the lineup for the Panthers, and they're already having to pass a bunch because they're getting down in games. DJ Moore had 8 catches for over 100 yards this past week. He's already the number 1 there. Even though Robbie Anderson, can't pass up what he's done so far. He looks to be a number 1. I'm pretty sure he has more targets this year than DJ Moore. So his rapport with Teddy Bridgewater seems to be really good. So really, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, both could be a good play week to week right now. And kind of like I mentioned just a little bit earlier, Michael Pittman Jr., somebody that I think could have a big week, They gave Jonathan Taylor the ball a lot this past week. I think they're going to give him the ball a lot, but give this rookie a chance. Give him the ball a bunch. Hopefully, 6 to 8 target kind of game for him. And my last, you got to start him is a guy that I have a lot of excitement about, and I think he has a chance to be really good. But his starting quarterback got hurt this year, and that's Jerry Jeudy. And it's not real clear how long Drew Lock's going to be out. Jeff Driscoll didn't look terrible. We don't expect him to be a terrible quarterback, um, but we don't expect him to have gaudy numbers either. So expectations are managed there. But Jerry Jeudy would be an interesting flex play for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Cortland Sutton out for the rest of the year. So somebody's got to step up, and Jerry Judy's a tall, lengthy, fast receiver. So we'll see what happens. Quarterback play. Any quarterbacks you want to avoid this week?
Yeah, the quarterback is kind of predictable, so we'll make this kind of quick. And people are going to call me crazy here because I know how good this dude is, but you got to sit Deshaun Watson this week. That offense has looked so bad, and I know Deshaun is averaging 17.8 points a week right now, but they go up against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh has a hardcore defense. And between the matchup and the way that offense looks, it's so dysfunctional right now. So Watson, I don't expect him to have a good game this week. I expect probably a couple turnovers. Not his fault. He's probably going to get sacked a lot and have a couple fumbles, probably interception in there. So I'd stay away from Watson this week, if you can, if that's the only quarterback on your roster playing. But if you can afford to sit Watson, I'd sit Watson. Another one is Baker Mayfield. I think Baker going forward may not even need to be on anybody's bench. Maybe if more people in that defense get hurt and they get down in games and they have to pass a bunch, he's somebody you look at as a starter. But week to week, Baker is the guy that I'd be looking for just on the waiver wire. I think Kevin Stefanski is going to do more of what they did this last week against the Bengals, and they're going to run the ball and play action more. And so you're not going to see Baker throwing the ball as much. 20 to 22 passes a game is going to, with Baker Mayfield, you're only getting 12 to 14 completions out of that. So if that's the way to go with it, Baker's somebody that I'd sit, especially this week. I think they're gonna have run the ball some more. It's going to be a kind of a dogfight kind of game. So I would stay away from Baker. And 3 starts are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Cam Newton. Josh Allen should be an every week start. I don't know coming into this week if or going into week 2 if he was an every week start for everybody, but he should be a week to week start right now. Joe Burrow is somebody that if they're throwing 50 times a game, start Joe Burrow. Even if he throws an interception or 2, he's probably about to get 300 yards and a couple touchdowns a game. And Cam Newton looked really, really good. And that's really exciting for the league, right? It sucks that it's with the Patriots, but Cam Newton looked really good going forward because of his rushing production, probably a week-to-week start.
Yeah, Cam's been balling out, man. I've been very impressed with Cam. Just racking up passing. He had 300, almost 400 yards last week, plus 2-3 rushing touchdowns. So yeah, Cam's definitely way up there. I mean, if he can keep producing like this, he may be in the talk for MVP this season. So we'll see. All right, shifting gears to the final group of guys, tight ends. Who you avoiding this week? Who you starting?
As much as the Falcons have been having to pass the ball, you're not seeing Hayden Hurst really get the ball as much as Austin Hooper, and maybe he is, but he hasn't done as much with it. So I'd stay away from Hayden Hurst. They really like Russell Gage. They've been playing him a lot, throwing to him a lot. And obviously you have Julio and Calvin Ridley there. So there are a lot of targets getting taken up by the receiving core. So I just stay away from Hayden Hurst. Even I know he might be attractive, but Trust me, stay away from Hayden Hurst this weekend. And Austin Hooper, he just hasn't been involved in that offense much. And if they're going to run the ball more and play action more, like if you're play actioning, your quarterback's looking for the deep shot first. His last hope is the check down. So I don't expect Austin Hooper to get the ball a whole lot in this offense going forward. So stay away from him. But starters, we got to talk about Darren Waller. That dude, he just had 12 catches over 100 yards. I understand the efficiency wasn't what you like to see. You like to see 10 plus yards per catch, but either way you cut it up, that's 12 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. He was a big part of the offense. I think they're going to keep running the offense like that. Worked really well against a really good defense last night. So I think Darren Waller going forward is probably going to be top 5, possibly top 3 play. Hunter Henry looks to be getting involved in that offense. He's healthy. He's moving well. He looks good again. I don't know if Tyrod likes to push the ball down the field, so I don't know if he'll be looking at the tight end as much. But if they put Justin Herbert in at any point, then I expect Henry to do better. They seem to have a good rapport right out the gate. So I like Hunter Henry, especially against the matchup this weekend. Noah Fant looks to be a star in the making. Just like Jerry Jeudy, it doesn't really matter to me if it's Drew Lock or Jeff Driscoll. Not a huge difference there. So I like Noah Fant pretty much any week. The league isn't deep on tight end, so Noah Fant is somebody that should probably be starting every week for somebody. And probably another weekly starter at this point is Johnny Smith. If you're in a 12, 14, 16 team league, then he should definitely be starting on somebody's team. We don't really know the extent of A.J. Brown's injury. They've kept that pretty quiet. Maybe he comes back this week, maybe he doesn't. But Tannehill likes to throw the ball to his tight end, and Johnny Smith is incredibly athletic. So I like him as a starter.
Good stuff, man. Well, there you have it. Whether you're in need of a pickup on the wire or you starters or sitters for your league, Fantasy Guru Jeff spitting the advice out. Well, our next episode is going to be coming out Thursday afternoon. Brad will be joining us again, and we'll be throwing out our preview and our pick'ems for the week. You can also, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you never miss an episode of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. Once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we're going to give away a authentic NFL jersey, player of your choice, to one lucky fan. You can also join our Pick'em League. It's not too late to join, a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we got a Pick'em League. You can find the link on our Facebook, Twitter account at Horsemen Sports. It's free. Join up, join Pick'em, go against us, have a little friendly contest. If you win, we'll throw you a prize. Maybe get a couple guys on the podcast in the future. That's all I got. Anything you got to say, Jeff?
Yeah, man. If you're dealing with a bunch of injuries from this past weekend, just know that we're brothers here. I had CMC on. I have a couple different rosters, obviously, but I had CMC, Devontae Adams, Malcolm Brown, and Paris Campbell all starting in the same lineup. So
damn,
you can imagine my weekend got kind of ruined, But it was a tough weekend. But when one guy goes down in the NFL, another one steps up. So be active on the waiver wire. There's a lot of guys to look for this weekend. Don't miss out. And prioritize what you need to, how you need to, but go for the waiver wire. There are a lot of good picks this weekend.
Heard that. With that said, we're out of here. We will see you Thursday.